Imagine a world power so vast, so advanced, so dominant that it seemed destined to last forever. Then, picture it simply fading away. Not in a sudden, catastrophic explosion, but a slow, agonizing decline. How does such a colossal empire, a civilization that literally defined an age, vanish from the map? For over 1,000 years, Rome stood as the undisputed heavyweight champion of the Western world. Its legions carved an empire stretching from the sands of Africa to the cold mists of Britain. Its laws laid the very foundations for modern justice, and its culture influenced everything that came after. Yet even the mightiest can fall. Today, we're not just recounting dates and names, we're stepping back into a monumental slow-motion catastrophe, unraveling the complex, intertwined reasons that brought down the seemingly eternal city, and discovering why its collapse still whispers lessons to us across the centuries. At its peak, the Roman Empire was breathtaking. Think about it, a single government controlling vast swathes of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, connecting diverse peoples with roads, aqueducts, and a common legal system. It was an engineering marvel, a military powerhouse, and a cultural melting pot. But even this incredible machine had its breaking points, invisible cracks that began to form long before the final collapse. One of the first signs of trouble was buried deep within Rome's economy. Imagine a country that's constantly at war, constantly expanding. That costs a lot of money. To pay its massive armies and fund its grand projects, Rome started to debase its currency. This means they put less and less silver or gold into their coins, effectively printing money without the value to back it up. What happens when you do that? Prices skyrocket. Basic goods became incredibly expensive, making life hard for ordinary people. Farmers couldn't sell their crops at a fair price, and small businesses struggled. This inflation hit everyone, slowly eroding the empire's financial strength from the inside out. Trade, the lifeblood of any empire, became risky and less profitable. At the same time, the political system was becoming a messy, dangerous game. Emperors rose and fell faster than seasons. Some ruled for only a few months, often meeting a violent end. The Praetorian Guard, the emperor's personal bodyguard, sometimes became kingmakers, choosing who would rule next, often for a hefty bribe. This constant power struggle meant that rulers weren't focused on solving the empire's real problems. They were too busy trying to stay alive. Loyalty shifted from the empire itself to individual generals or factions, tearing the fabric of Roman unity apart. Corruption became a festering wound, as officials often put personal gain above the good of the state. Then there was the military, Rome's legendary fighting force. For centuries, Roman legions were unmatched. But as the empire grew, its borders became enormous, stretching thousands of miles. Protecting these vast territories became an impossible task. The empire needed more soldiers, but fewer Roman citizens wanted to join the army, preferring a more comfortable life. So, Rome started relying on foreign mercenaries, often Germanic tribesmen, to fill its ranks. These soldiers, while effective, didn't always have the same deep loyalty to Rome. They fought for pay, not necessarily for the glory of the empire, and sometimes they turned against their employers. This dependence on outsiders for defense was a huge gamble. Beneath all these problems, society itself was changing. There was a massive gap between the rich and the poor. The wealthy lived in luxury, while many ordinary Romans struggled. Public spirit, once a defining Roman trait, started to decline. People felt less connected to the state, more concerned with their own immediate survival. Plague swept through the empire, devastating populations and making it even harder to recruit soldiers or maintain the workforce. The empire's very size, once its greatest asset, became its biggest challenge. It was simply too big to manage effectively from a single capital. Communication was slow, and responding to threats on distant borders took ages. So, in an effort to save it, Emperor Diocletian divided the empire into East and West in the late 3rd century. Later, Emperor Constantine moved the Echo-Effect to a new city in the east, Constantinople. These were desperate attempts to make the empire more governable, but they also created two distinct halves, weakening the western half further. The Western Roman Empire, which we're mainly talking about today, became less important, less wealthy, and increasingly vulnerable. This vulnerability was ruthlessly exposed by barbarian tribes. Groups like the Goths, Vandals, and Huns, pushed by their own circumstances and drawn by Rome's perceived weakness, began to knock harder on the empire's studies. They weren't just random raiders. Many were migrating peoples seeking new lands or refuge. When the Goths sacked Rome in 410 CE, it was a psychological earthquake. The Eternal City had fallen. It was a terrifying sign that something truly fundamental had changed. The empire fought back, sometimes winning, sometimes losing, but the constant pressure drained its resources and manpower. The climax arrived not with a bang, but a whimper. On September 4th, 476 CE, a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer deposed the last Western Roman Empire. A young boy named Romulus Augustulus. He didn't execute him. He simply sent him into retirement and sent the imperial regalia, the crown and robes, back to the Eastern Emperor in Constantinople. There was no widespread outcry, no massive battle for Rome's fate. It was a quiet, almost understated end to an era. The Western Roman Empire didn't so much fall as it simply ceased to be. Its institutions collapsed, its central authority vanished, and Europe plunged into a new period we call the Middle Ages, often characterized by fragmented kingdoms and local power shortages. The fall of Rome wasn't a single event, but a long, drawn-out process, a complex interplay of economic woes, political instability, military overstretch, and social decay. It serves as a powerful reminder that even the mightiest structures can crumble if their foundations are allowed to rot. Its legacy, however, is immense. Roman law, Latin language, architectural innovations, and ideas about governance continue to shape our world today, proving that even in collapse, an empire can leave an everlasting imprint.